Today I'm going to show you how to make these I-Cord bracelets using an I-Cord knitting machine. This is a pattern from my new book, Circular Knitting Machine Patterns, which is available now on Amazon. You can find the link in the description below, or you can find the link at dianalevinknits.com. The book features 25 of my favorite knitting machine patterns, as well as a section on techniques and a section of templates for sketching out some of the projects in the book. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the size small medium bracelet, and we'll also give instructions for how to make the size large bracelet. The small medium bracelet measures approximately 8.5 inches in circumference, and the large size measures approximately 9.5 inches in circumference. And the pattern is very easily adjustable in terms of sizing if you'd like to make the bracelet smaller or larger. You can find tutorials for many of the patterns in the book here on my YouTube channel. I have lots more knitting machine tutorials coming soon, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date when I release my latest videos. I love this pattern because they're super quick to make, which makes them a great last minute gift. And I love that they're both stylish and functional as they keep your wrists warm on cold days. If you make this project, please tag me on social media when you share your work. You can find me at Diana Levine Knits on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Pinterest. In terms of timing, this is one of the quickest projects in the book. It took me approximately 7 minutes to knit the I-cord, 3 minutes to assemble the bracelet, and 2 minutes to sew the knitting tag around the back, for a total project time of approximately 12 minutes per bracelet. That being said, we all go at different paces, so the project time will vary from person to person. All the supplies I'm using today are linked in the description below. For this project, I'm using the Tulip I-Cord knitter machine. I'm using Lion brand Heartland yarn, which is a weight 4 yarn. I really like this Heartland for this project because it has some shine to it. You'll also need some 1.5 inch buckles. I'm using rhinestone buckles, which I adore because they really add to the jewelry effect. You'll also need a darning needle, a pair of scissors, a tape measure, and I'm finishing my bracelets with these 1 inch tall knitting tags. The tags were custom designed for these bracelets, and again, I'll link below to the shop where I ordered them. Let's get started on the bracelets. Step 1 is knitting the I-cords. The first step to using an I-cord maker is to thread the yarn up through the hook on the left side of the machine. Then bring the yarn over the little groove on the side of the top and thread the yarn down through the middle of the machine. Next, add the weight to the bottom of the yarn tail. While you're working, you can either hold the knitting machine up in the air or in your lap, or you can place it flat onto a table. However you choose to hold your machine, make sure that the weight is pulling down on the yarn while you're knitting. Before you begin knitting, make sure that all 4 hooks are open. 2 quick tips. When you work the first few rows, go extremely slowly. You can pick up the speed after a few minutes, but work 1 needle at a time for the first few rows. And 2. While you're working, make sure to provide tension to the working yarn. The weight will pull down on the yarn tail, but you also need to provide some tension for the working yarn. Personally, I like to weave the yarn over my pinky, under my ring finger and middle finger, and then over my index finger to provide tension. But you can hold the yarn whatever way is most comfortable for you, as long as you're somehow providing tension. For the cast-on row, turn the knob and let the first hook pick up the yarn. Then turn the knob again, but this time before the second hook grabs the yarn, use a crochet hook or your fingers to pull the yarn behind the second hook. Then turn the knob and allow the third needle to grab the yarn. And then again turn the knob, and before the fourth hook grabs the yarn, use a crochet hook or your fingers to move the yarn behind the fourth needle. Your cast-on row is now complete. For the next row and all the remaining rows, simply continue turning the knob and allowing all 4 needles to pick up the yarn for every row. As I mentioned earlier, make sure to go very slowly for the first few rows, and after you've knit an inch or 2, you can pick up the speed for the rest of the project. Soon you'll see an I-cord begin to emerge from the bottom of the machine. At this point, your weight should still be pulling down on the I-cord. For the small medium bracelet, knit an I-cord that's 38 inches long. For the large size bracelet, knit an I-cord that's 43 inches long. This pattern is very flexible. If you'd like to knit a smaller bracelet, simply knit a shorter I-cord. If you'd like to knit a larger bracelet, knit a longer I-cord. As you work, you may need to keep unwinding the I-cord. Along the way, you can stop to measure the I-cord to see how much longer you need to knit. At this point, my I-cord is 27 inches long, so I'll need to continue until at least 38 inches. When knitting an I-cord, always err on the side of longer rather than shorter. It's very easy to reduce the length of the I-cord after it's off the machine, so I typically will knit all my I-cords longer than I need, and then I pull the stitches out to the desired length. Okay, I just measured my I-cord again, and it's measuring at 42 inches long, which is longer than I need for the small medium size, so I'm ready to cast off. Step 2 is casting off the I-cord. After you've reached or exceeded your desired length, cut a tail of about 6 to 8 inches in the working yarn. Pull the yarn out a couple stitches, and then rotate the knob a few more times until the work pops off the needles. Then you can simply pull the I-cord out from the bottom of the machine. You'll have one end of the I-cord which already has a knot, and one end of the I-cord which will have 4 live stitches. For the bottom of the I-cord, where the end already has a secure knot, the last stitch or two may look a little loose. If that's the case, thread the yarn onto a darning needle and pull the work together tightly with a couple of stitches, and then secure the yarn with a couple of good knots. You'll see the end of the I-cord will look neater now. Before we bind off the stitches, we need to reduce the length of the I-cord. Use a measuring tape to measure 38 inches for the small or medium size, or 43 inches for the large size. Pinch the I-cord at the desired length, and then simply pull the yarn tail to pull the stitches out until you reach your fingers. Next, we'll bind off the stitches. Thread the yarn tail onto a darning needle. You'll see there are 4 live stitches remaining. Use the darning needle to thread through each stitch, being careful not to pull any stitches out while you work. After you pick up the 4th stitch, secure the yarn with a couple of good knots and pull as tightly as you can without breaking the yarn. Our I-cord is now complete and we're ready to assemble the bracelet. Step 3 is assembling the bracelet. Before we begin, I'll double check that my I-cord is the correct length. Keep in mind that I-cords are fairly stretchy, so I like to pull my I-cords gently a couple of times to stretch them out a bit before measuring. To assemble the bracelet, grab one of the 1.5 inch buckles. Take one end of the I-cord and thread it up through one side and down through the other side. Then place the buckle in the middle of the I-cord. Next, grab the right side of the I-cord and thread it up through the left side and down through the right side of the buckle, pulling it through, leaving approximately the size of your desired bracelet. You can wiggle this around later, so it doesn't need to be exact at this point. Just make it approximately the size of your bracelet. Again, grab the right side of the I-cord and repeat the same process, threading it up through the left side and down through the right side of the buckle, leaving the end of the I-cord about halfway down the bracelet. Next, turn the work upside down and push the 3 I-cords to the top of the buckle. Next, grab the other side of the I-cord and thread it up through the left side and down through the right side of the buckle. Repeat the same process again, threading up through the left and down through the right side of the buckle, leaving the end about halfway down the bracelet. You'll now have 5 wraps around the middle of the buckle. At this point, wiggle the wraps around to make sure they're placed evenly. If one of them looks longer than the others, simply pull the I-cords until they're all placed evenly. Next, grab the 2 yarn tails and tie them together as tightly as you can without breaking the yarn. Secure this join with a few good knots. Our bracelet is almost complete. Next, thread the shorter yarn onto a darning needle. Weave the yarn into the center of the I-cord to hide the tail. Pull it through, trim the yarn tail, and then pull the work to bring the yarn tail into the center. You'll now have 1 yarn tail remaining, which we'll use to sew the knitting tag around the bracelet. Step 4 is sewing on the knitting tag. Thread the yarn tail onto a darning needle. Before I begin, I like to thread the yarn under 1 stitch to the right of the join to bring the yarn to the right side of the tag. Wrap the tag around the back of the join, and then thread the yarn into the top right hole. Then thread through the bottom right hole, and then through the second hole in the top. Pull the yarn tightly, and then thread through the second hole in the bottom, and through the third hole in the top. Then thread through the third hole in the bottom, and then the fourth hole in the top. Finally, thread the yarn through the 4th hole on the bottom side, and then secure the yarn with a good knot or 2 on an interior bar of the I-cord. Next, hide the yarn tail by threading the yarn through the center of the I-cord, trimming the yarn tail, and then pulling the I-cord to hide the tail in the center. Gently stretch out the bracelet, and if needed, pull the cords to make sure they're all placed evenly. Your I-cord bracelet is complete. If you enjoyed this pattern, you can order the full book of my knitting machine patterns, which is available now on Amazon, or you can find the link at dianalevinknits.com. If you make this project, please tag me when you share your work, at Diana Levine Knits on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Pinterest. And if you liked this video, please give it a like, comment below, and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all my latest videos.